The administration is also letting special interest aliens, thousands of them, cross the border on the CBP-1 phone app from 17 different countries. 7,500, Afghans and Syrians and Uzbeks and people from all of those. And there's no way that they're able to do the vetting that is sufficient to let those people just cross the border on these parole permission slips. So 320 on the FBI terror watch list. When you and I were doing this 20 years ago, there might be 2 or 3 that like somebody would sneak to us, back then, maybe 10 in a year tops. We had 169 in 2023 who are on the watch list. And that is amid 2 million gotaways. 2 million gotaways. Like in our day, it was just a tiny fraction of those kind of numbers of gotaways. So I am greatly concerned and worried about what's coming. I mean, people are in this country right now who mean us harm.
How does it feel to have a president that is backstabbing every single one of you with a Mexican knife? How does that feel? Because that's what he's doing. He is backstabbing you with a Mexican knife, cutting deals with AMLO. He's cutting deals with President Obrador to try to lessen the flow into America while he is fighting with Governor Greg Abbott, with my governor, who is trying to protect our country and protect our borders and telling him, no, you're not allowed to do that. I'm sorry, you're not allowed to do that. He's threatening to federalize the National Guard, to take away any authority from the state of Texas to protect itself. And I'm so grateful because I'm a mess. Like, I just came in from New York. I am like ready to hit and go down to the border. I'm going down to the border tomorrow morning. I'm spending time with my family tonight here in Texas, but I will be at the border tomorrow morning. And I'll be at the border next week. Because we have a president of the United States of America that does not care about our national security, about your children, or about the people that are being trafficked into this country. And in fact, he is aiding and abetting the drug cartels and the human traffickers. That is exactly what this president is doing. And if there is an American out there, if one of you out there doesn't believe this to be the case, then you are sadly mistaken. I've been covering this border for more than 20 years, and this is the worst that I've ever seen. And all of this fight between the feds and the state comes at a time, I think, one of the most disastrous decisions by the Supreme Court to allow the feds to basically take over Shelby Park and cut through the razor wire that has been put there to keep people out. Because I want you to understand this. It's not to harm people. It is to send a clear message that this country is not open for business. It is to send a clear message to the human traffickers that we will not be doing business with you. It is to send a clear message to the American people. That's what Governor Greg Abbott is doing. That we are going to protect your children from the scourge of fentanyl that is killing so many Americans, poisoning them at a rate that is unheard of. Over 112,000. I think those numbers are closer now to 120,000 last year that were killed from fentanyl poisoning and overdose deaths. And that comes from Mexico and from China and every other adversary that is utilizing that wide open border that Biden opened up for them. I mean, he said it. He came into office and he basically dismantled every single executive order that President Trump put in place to protect this country, to protect you. I am so grateful that President Trump is running and that he is going to be the nominee. I know he is. And I pray to God every single day that he'll be 47, because there is nobody else out there that is going to protect you or me or my family the way President Trump is going to protect them. I am telling you this straight from my heart. He absolutely wants to protect this country and to take care of the national security. And he wants to deport all of the criminal aliens that have been dumped into our country by our adversaries like Venezuela and other parts of the world. What do you think's happening? How do people get out of China? You don't just walk out of China and come to the United States here illegally, make that long journey. The Chinese government is well aware of who's coming into this country. They are also well aware that they can bring spies into this country right through that border. We've seen people from Mali, people from Bangladesh, people from all over the world that are SIAs. Those are special interest aliens. Special interest aliens. I've been reporting about this forever. These are people from countries that we cannot properly vet that are connected to terrorism, and we're letting them into our country. Do you think Biden is going to be punished if a bomb goes off in one of our cities because a sleeper cell is here and they're targeting Americans or our assets? Do you really think that Biden is going to pay a price for that? For crying out loud. His son and him were cutting deals with the Chinese. They had more than 200 SARs. Those are special activity reports with the Treasury Department, and nobody's even held them accountable for anything. For anything. In fact, they are doing everything in their power, and these are all the people that support Biden that do not care about you. Everything in their power to try to drag the only president that will protect our border into courts every single day, complete election interference, and they do not care because they do not care about you. They don't care about you. Right now, Biden has cut some kind of deal with Mexico, offering them so much money, and God only knows what else, in an effort to try to position himself to become president of the United States again and destroy our nation once and for all. And remember, folks, I don't care what anyone thinks. Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, all of the people that worked, the Clintons, all of the people that work for Biden, all these people are in the same bed. And in fact, Biden really isn't running the show. They are. So none of those people are going to do anything for you. They may just talk a little bit more coherently than Biden and his mumbo jumbo now. But the Biden administration does not care about you, does not care about your children, does not care about the future of this nation. They really, really don't. They really, really don't. Why is the radical left doing this? Why do they want all these people to come in? Why won't Democrats just join us? Just join us in fighting to protect our nation. Some are waking up. Some really are waking up in Chicago and New York. You're seeing it because they know that there is something so vitally wrong with this. And what the hell happened to our border czar, Kamala Harris? How come Secretary Mayorkas is working against us, against you and me? Don't you ever just think when you go home and you look at your children, when you look at your family, you say to yourself, how much longer am I going to be able to protect them? How much longer is this life going to continue to exist the way that it does? How much longer is America going to continue to be the envy of the world, or will she just break? These are the choices that you need to think about. That's why immigration is the number one issue. It surpasses even the economy right now in Americans' minds because we can physically and tangibly see what is going on. We can see the destruction. We can see what they are trying to do. And we know that they are lying and gaslighting us every time they say, don't believe your lying eyes. And that is why we have Todd Bensman on the show today to discuss all this and more. And I promise you, you do not want to miss this interview with Todd Bensman. He is amazing. He has been investigating this for as long as I have. He is probably one of the best investigative journalists, I believe, bar none, out there. He has testified before Congress. He is an author. I mean, he is going to give you the information that nobody else will. And I promise you, I promise you, you will not regret it. But first, MyPillow. Mike Lindell and MyPillow employees want to thank my listeners for all of your continued support. They want to thank you for the enormous blowout sale. It's been great. MyPillow's best prices ever and free shipping on your entire order is back. Other savings are 50% off MyPillow 2.0. You'll also get the flannel sheets. They've just arrived. They won't last long. Take advantage of free shipping on that with larger items such as mattresses and mattress toppers, 100% made in the USA for as low as $99.99. Visit mypillow.com/Carter. That's CARTER and enter code Carter at checkout for free shipping and huge discounts, including the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98. Go to mypillow.com/Carter, code Carter, mypillow.com/Carter, code Carter, CARTER, or call 1-800-685-7221. I want to thank Todd Bensman, a journalist, researcher. You're an author of Overrun and a senior national security fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies. Your research is just incredible, Todd. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's such an important day, Todd. I mean, this is what we call epic American history, a clash between the states and the feds in such a way that, I mean, people are literally concerned online. I mean, I don't think this is going to go to like lifting up weapons. I hope not, or anything like that. I don't think this is going to get violent. Or, this is the day of, folks. So if you hear this later, there's different things could have happened. But I think that certainly this is an epic moment in our Constitution. I mean, we're seeing challenges from the state to the feds. What do you think is going on here?
Right. I mean, this has been brewing for quite a while. Greg Abbott is taking measures to block and stop and deter illegal immigrants in the water while they're still in the water, like NFL linemen, lining up against them coming up the riverbank. And they've been doing that for quite a while. The reason why they keep coming up the riverbank, though, is because behind the Texas guys are the green uniform guys. Right. They're like the saving angels or something, because if they can get to the green uniform guys, they'll be let in within 24 hours forever, the rest of their lives. So it's a high stakes game for them to dodge the Texas guys and make it to the green uniform guys, the federal guys, so that you will get in. And that's why that's still going on. The Border Patrol agents are under orders and have been under orders to cut that wire, to shut it down. The Texas state troopers and National Guard, under the control of Greg Abbott, kick them out of the area. Shelby Park, you mentioned that you might go there. Shelby Park is right there at the epicenter in Eagle Pass, right, where a lot of this has been playing out. And kicked them out because they're too much of a lure. They're like a fishing lure or something, a really bright, shiny, lure under that bridge. And you can't come in here. And now the Supreme Court says, well, you have to let the feds cut the wire and shut down all your fortifications. And the state's saying, well, go ahead and try. We're going to just keep building them when you tear them down. As you tear them down, we're going to keep building them. The big question is whether the Biden people will actually cut anything down, because there's a guy named Donald Trump, right, who's campaigning on this mass migration crisis as his top issue right now. He recognizes that the whole country cares a lot about this. And if Donald Trump's campaign gets a hold of images of Border Patrol tearing down obstructions, taking wire down to clear the way, it's going to be campaign advertising, bonanza. So I don't think that they are going to be cutting anything down there, but there's a question of whether or not that's going to happen.
Well, and look, a lot of the Border Patrol agents, I've spoken to Border Patrol agents on background, they don't want to cut it down. They don't want people coming in. They want to be able to do their job, which is to repatriate, get these people back to their country of origin and not let them in the United States. And they want to be able to get to the point where, of course, like Immigration and Customs Enforcement, where they are going after the bad guys, where they are stopping the flow of fentanyl into the country, where they are targeting the cartels and the movement of the cartels and the contraband that's coming across. But instead, they've become pseudo babysitters and medics and transportation officials moving people illegally into the country. This is so out of control, Todd, that our national security is at an epic crisis right now. We know terrorists have come into this country. We know that because we have apprehended some of them. We've intercepted them. We know that there's all these known gotaways. The numbers look to be more like 22 million illegals in the country. We've always said that instead of this 11 million number, which, by the way, I've been hearing that 11 million. I don't know if you have, but since Bush was in office, people have been saying 8 to 11 million. And I'm like, no, it's way more than that. But this is a very, very real crisis in our nation when the federal government is standing up to the states in such a way. And by the time I got off the plane, there were 14 states backing Governor Greg Abbott, and the list is growing. And the list is growing of states that are saying, whoa, feds, you cannot do this. What can the feds do? I mean, are they going to go in and try to take over the National Guard? Are they going to seize the park?
There are some calls to federalize the National Guard under Abbott, and there is authority to do that. I wouldn't be surprised if they did do that. It would take away the labor that Abbott relies on to build all that fortification down there. There are calls for that to happen, but right now, there's not the numbers that are coming across have fallen quite a bit since these big peaks that we saw in October, November, and December. Because
bingo, this is what you are investigating. Why did these numbers drop so much so?
Right. I mean, we all remember just weeks ago, 14,000 a day days, 10,000, 11, 12,000 a day days, just pouring in. Well, the Biden administration's number one top policy priority with the border is to move away clumps of congregated foreign nationals on the riverbank away from TV cameras, period. That's it. That's all they care about. That is the number one thing they care about. They don't want Fox News drones showing that footage, or NBC or any of the network drones showing that footage that they were showing. So long about December 22nd, Biden goes down to Mexico City. How often does he do that? Mm-hmm. He's not interested in Mexico, but he went down there to talk immigration with the president. 5 days later, Blinken, the Secretary of State, and Mayorkas, DHS Secretary, went down and did a follow-up. We don't know what they agreed to. We know Mexico asked for $20 billion. But that same week, we saw Mexican soldiers from Tijuana to Matamoros clearing out thousands and thousands of immigrants, rounding them up from all of those border towns and putting them on buses and airplanes and shipping them down to Villahermosa in the very far south and Tapachula down by the Guatemala border, and blocking them up there. They shut down the trains, La Bestia, the freight trains, for the first time in 3 years. I mean, I was down there a year ago and did all kinds of reporting about how the trains are wide open and hundreds of thousands of people are using these trains to get to the border in a quick way, cheap and easy. All of a sudden, now they can't get on the trains. They're blocked down there in Tapachula. They're bulldozing migrant camps. They're digging anti-pedestrian trenches all over the place. And today, Eagle Pass is dead. There's nothing going on in Eagle Pass, nothing going on in Piedras across the way.
Amazing.
Because they've all been cleared out. Now, how long will this last? I mean, I hear that they're already trying to bust out from Tapachula. There's a new caravan It'll be a supreme test of Obrador's will.
But this isn't to stop the migrants from coming here. This covert type of deal that's happening between AMLO and Biden. What do you think? What do you think he's getting out of this? I mean, AMLO's obviously getting something big, the money. What else?
He's not doing it out of the goodness of his heart. That's for sure. Something traded hands. There was some kind of horse trade.
Right.
Mexico doesn't do any of this kind of stuff, or at least they haven't since Trump said we're going to do 28% trade tariffs on your economy if you don't do everything I tell you to do when I tell you to do it. When that was happening, Obrador complied in every way. When Biden came in, he said, we're going to get rid of the sticks and give you billions of dollars. How about that? As soon as the checks were cashed, Obrador just let them all go.
Right.
So I don't know what's going to happen. What traded? Who traded what? Nobody's talking about what got traded.
But you
here.
absolutely believe that something got traded, because I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Something got traded, or there was a threat or something, because the numbers that were 12,000, 13,000, 14,000 a day are now tamped down to a still catastrophic 6,000 and 7,000 a day. It's still unbelievably high, but it's not those congregations of migrants in front of the TV cameras now. And I think that's sort of the win that the administration was seeking, because they've got an election coming up and they perceive that the polls are against them on this issue, and in a big way. The polls are all showing that this issue is greater concern to the American public even than inflation.
Right.
It's way, way up there. It's an apex issue. And they've got an election coming up that looks like it might be pretty close with Trump. And this could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. They're having Mexico do their dirty work right now. I wrote a big piece about this for the New York Post.
It was a great piece.
Thank you. I'm citing Mexican media. The Mexican media is covering the hell out of this. It's a huge story in Mexico. Unfortunately, I'm the only one in America that's reported it to date here in the U.S.
And I want everyone to know where to look for your column, because I think it's an absolutely excellent column. Everybody, all of you out there need to read this. It's Has Biden bribed Mexico to control the border and help him win the election? It is a very, very important piece. And it's the reason why I wanted you on the show today. I'm watching what's happening, and I'm almost in a state of disbelief. When you and I used to cover the border, and I'm talking a long time ago, I mean, you were covering it. I first started, I was a young reporter over 20 years ago. We were warning about this. I remember you were warning about it. I was warning about it. We were talking about the threat of terrorism, the increased numbers. Did you ever think it was going to get this bad that a U.S. president would literally open the border and his policy would be to keep this border open and put everyone in peril?
Well, I remember there was this some reporter out in California who was writing about special interest aliens, the very topic that I thought I was the only one in the country writing about all those years ago. And in those days when we were writing about it, we might see 3,000 or 4,000 a year coming across, which was alarming to us. I mean, we're right. I mean,
right.
You shouldn't be having anybody from Iraq and Syria crossing the border from those countries. Today, there's good reporting. Fox News and the Daily Caller have published leaked data that 85,000, 100,000+ special interest aliens in a year, not 3,000 or 4,000, 100,000 in a year. Well, our infrastructure, our counterterrorism infrastructure down there on the border is just simply not capable of interviewing them, of running all their prints, of going through their pocket trash before they get released. So, we're at great peril over that, in my opinion. I testified to that before Congress. And I feel like all of our counterterrorism programs are, off the rails now. I don't think we're doing them. And also, the administration is also letting special interest aliens, thousands of them, cross the border on the CBP-1 phone app from 17 different countries. 7,500, Afghans and Syrians and Uzbeks and people from all of those. And there's no way that they're able to do the vetting that is sufficient to let those people just cross the border on these parole permission slips. So 320 on the FBI terror watch list. When you and I were doing this 20 years ago, there might be 2 or 3 that like somebody would sneak to us, back then, maybe 10 in a year tops. We had 169 in 2023 who are on the watch list. And that is amid 2 million gotaways. 2 million gotaways. Like in our day, it was just a tiny fraction of those kind of numbers of gotaways. So I am greatly concerned and worried about what's coming. I mean, people are in this country right now who mean us harm.
These people that are coming from these special interest aliens that are, we know some of them are linked to terrorist organizations, maybe completely connected to the terrorist organization. We don't even know if there's sleeper cells that have already penetrated our nation. I've talked to U.S. intelligence officials. I know you have too, and Western intelligence, as well as intelligence officials in Central America. And all of them are saying the same thing. They're absolutely certain without a doubt, that there are sleeper cells in the country and that we will be facing an attack and that would be imminent unless it stopped. And you know what's blowing my mind, Todd? I was talking to someone today, former FBI agent, and they sent me a story, and it's just mind-blowing how, we, coupled with our border, we have, an FBI and a bureaucracy that is hiring with diversity, equity, and inclusion, the DEI, right? And you read this New York Post story about the report that was submitted to Congress about how all of these agents are not qualified, they're overweight, they're being retrained to learn how to write in English correctly, to speak the written language and write the written language. There's people that don't want to work on the weekends. They don't want to work overtime. And all of a sudden you put this puzzle together and we're in a worse situation now than we were pre-September 11th. It's mind-blowing.
I hadn't read that. I hadn't read that report.
I'm going to send you that report. It's going to blow your mind. It's going to blow your mind. You're just going to be like, wait a minute, that they lowered the standards so low that even people within the FBI are like throwing their hands up like, you know what? Not in our day, even to the point where drug use, now there's lower standards for drug use, lower standards for physical, for their physical well-being, lower standards for just about everything across the board. But it just was so loud and clear. I was in New York on my way to Austin airport. I was sitting at the New York airport when I got it. And I thought to myself, wow, I'm sitting in the airport wondering, did the FBI miss a sign? We've got a wide open border. The feds are standing up to the state. And now we've got we don't have anybody there to protect us.
Yeah, well, for one thing is for certain is that along the border, we also don't have anyone to protect us because they're all busy processing in the 5 and 6 and 7,000 a day that they're still getting.
Right.
They're off the line. The drug trafficking is running through moving through the gaps. We are unable to properly vet special interest aliens, people from countries of interest like that. Do you remember, Sarah, just like a couple of years ago, there were these huge national debates and fact check stories about whether there were prayer rugs found at the border? Remember all that?
Yes, of course.
Well, there's video now all over Twitter, or I guess X, showing Muslims actually on their prayer rugs with the wall right behind them facing east doing their prayers in a big long row. And I was looking at that, and if you didn't know the debate and the fights over those prayer rugs of just like a few years ago, it wouldn't have the same ironic impact as it did on me when I saw that. I was like, God, where was that scene? 4 or 5 years ago.
Right, and they actually came out and called people liars. They said that they were placing those rugs there, that there was no way, there isn't any Qurans, that this is alarmist again, and that these are racist remarks that we would be accusing.
They all had their prayer rugs. They were on prayer rugs. With the Trump wall behind them.
That is just so amazing to me. I know exactly where you're coming from, Todd, because the irony behind all of this is mind blowing. Hey, folks, hit that subscribe button here on Rumble and leave us a like. It just takes 2 seconds and it really helps us out. Thank you. Let's talk about this. Colony Ridge. I think this is important. I want people to understand this. Sure. This was a big story of yours as well. And Congressman Brian Babin, who I just absolutely love. I think he's fantastic. And he has been trying to expose this. Our nation is literally breaking from within. It's literally breaking from within. Explain to the listeners what Colony Ridge is and why you were so concerned about it and how it went public.
It's a 60 square mile city of illegal aliens in the middle of Texas.
Right.
Old East Texas, about 40 miles northeast of Houston. That is absolutely vast. I've been up there over in a helicopter and in a plane, and I've flown my drone. I mean, it's to the horizon. You can't even see the end of this thing, how vast it is, of just kind of dilapidated trailers. And the developer's been selling land marketed to illegal aliens. For $100 down, you can get a quarter acre lot, and then you can put whatever you want on it. There's no zoning or anything, and then hook up your own utilities. And there are somewhere on the order of the magnitude of maybe 100,000 illegal aliens that are mostly. I mean, not everybody's illegal. Some of them have different kinds of status, but certainly the people that live there believe that the vast majority, and law enforcement too, that vast majority are illegal immigrants. And when you have, 5 or 6 million people pouring over the border, and at this rate, we're probably going to have at least another couple million in 2024, 8 million, 9 million altogether by the time the first term is over. They have to live somewhere.
Well, they're living now they're living in the airport. They've been living in Boston. I mean, I just left Boston. They're sleeping in the airports in Boston. They're sleeping in the police stations in Chicago. They're on the streets. They're in schools, and they're in tents in New York City off of Beckett Field. I mean,
well, Colony Ridge, Texas. And
that's Bennett Field. I just want to remember, it's not Beckett, it's Floyd Bennett Field in New York City. 2,000 migrants in tents there. But go ahead. Yeah.
Well, this Colony Ridge is just a few years down the road for them, because this is a business model. It's a way to disperse population into sort of cheap, unwanted land. This is bottom land, flood land. But then you also are concentrating unique social problems there, crime problems. You overwhelm the policing systems and the criminal justice systems. And Colony Ridge shows us what that looks like. Recently, the Texas Department of Public Safety had to go in and do surge operations just to get rid of the most visible illegality of, screeching cars and speeding and gunfire everywhere and guns everywhere and, petty criminality happening all over the place. At least now they have finally surged, a bunch of troopers in there, and they're in there all the time pulling people over. and getting rid of some of the worst of it. But there's cartel activity there too. No matter what they tell you, there's an amount of cartel activity there that's 100% of what it was 10 years ago, because there was none out there. It was forest land. It was wilderness, really. Now it's all clear cut. And it looks and feels and smells like, a foreign country down in Central America.
Well, and just like you said, Todd, I mean, it's coming to a community near one of you, one of the listeners, one of you. It is.
It should be probably already happening all over the country. This kind of a community with all of these kind of problems that it brings.
You had reported, though, that the EPA is going to be investigating this development. Was there any movement there at all? Have they done anything, or has everybody kind of acquiesced to the rich guy?
Yeah. No, there are two things that happen. One is the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau filed an 11-count complaint against this developer for operating what it says is a widespread illegal land sales scheme. The lawsuit is accusing the developers now, and this is Biden's people, trying to protect immigrants, basically illegal immigrants. But in the end, it may have the actual, the opposite effect of shutting down this kind of business model. Alleging, fraudulent claims, alleging excessive foreclosure. It's like 35, 40% foreclosure rates. And then they flip the house to the next illegal immigrant. And they're charging 13, 14, 15% interest, this kind of thing, which is usurious and illegal according to the feds. It's an 11 count. It's pretty serious. It could put this guy out of business. It's seeking damages for all of the illegal immigrants that have purchased property there and got foreclosed on, or have been paying excessive interest rates. So it could bankrupt the guy. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's a court proceeding. It's civil court. And then the EPA is coming in. They have confirmed they have an active investigation with, sewage flowing into Houston's drinking supply, and human waste everywhere, and other kinds of violations that we don't know about yet. The IRS has an active investigation. The Army Corps of Engineers, DOD, has an active investigation. So I do think that these are important. Even if they help the immigrants by enriching them, it may actually undercut the model that built Colony Ridge from a forest land 10 years ago to 100,000 population illegal immigrant colonia in the middle of Texas. Maybe if this works, they won't be able to repeat this kind of a thing elsewhere, but I'm not very optimistic, because they have to live somewhere. Right. So someone's going to come up with some way to, settle millions and millions of people that don't have any money.
I think, but we're feeling the pressure, and they're definitely feeling the pressure in New York City. You can see it. The residents aren't putting up with it anymore. You've got the mayor throwing fits, Mayor Eric Adams, and he's going after the White House as much as he can. We've seen it both in Democratic cities as well as conservatives. When I was in New Hampshire, it was the number one issue. Almost everybody I talked to at the diner was like, it's the border, it's immigration, it's fentanyl, it's the fact that President Biden doesn't care about the American people. I think what's going to happen here at Shelby Park is going to be like that kind of apex moment, right? And before I let you go, I kind of want to get your assessment of what you think is going to transpire. I'm not asking for just hypotheticals, but what you think could really transpire between the feds and the state. If the federal government wins, as it somewhat did with the Supreme Court, or really did with the Supreme Court, if it wins this battle here at Shelby, that could be potentially very dangerous for the rest of the country, I would think. But if we hold the line, that could really be telling.
The problem is in Texas. The fundamental problem in Texas is the federal policy of catch and release. That's ultimately it's defeating even Greg Abbott's troops. There are areas where they successfully block the immigrants, and you can see them in the water. They go back to Mexico for a little while, but they're on the other side looking for the Border Patrol agents who are under orders. I understand what you were saying earlier. They're not doing this out of pleasure. They're doing it out of displeasure. They're being ordered to let everybody in. About 90% of everybody who hits that border is let in, Sarah. Think about that for a minute. Almost everybody who comes to the border gets let in if they can get themselves into the hands of the Border Patrol. So if Greg Abbott and his fortifications are forced to be dismantled and to move, then just 100% of everybody, 95% or whatever it is, will be brought in by the feds. We're waiting to see. This isn't decided. The Supreme Court supposedly is going to hear arguments on the merit of the debate that whether states have the right to control their riverbank on their border, or the feds do. But for right now, it went to the feds. Greg Abbott is saying out loud, and he's saying, if they tear anything down, we're going to rebuild it as soon as they walk away. Then if the Biden administration federalizes all of his labor, that becomes very difficult to do. That's why they're saying federalize his labor, his National Guard, because then they'll just order them off. And Greg Abbott will be left with some cops to do that work, not his National Guard.
And of course, we know Texas DPS is just spread so thin. They're they're under-resourced right now because they're doing double duty. They're helping guard our border for our nation, as well as, guarding Texans against crime and criminality and doing everything they can to be there for us. It's such a frustrating situation because really the dereliction of duty, and I'm going to end it here, you can add to it, the dereliction of duty is on the part of President Biden. He is aiding and abetting the drug cartels and the human traffickers. And I say that in the very real sense of the word. He has made it possible for so many millions and millions of people to come into our country. And it's literally destroying the fabric of our nation, both on a national security level, as well as an economic level, every level. And our children are dying.
Well, I get accused of being depressing, so I'm gonna go ahead and leave you with meeting the standards of my reputation. But one thing that people need to on the Greg Abbott Texas, since you're going down there, issue is if you just scope back for a minute away from Texas, you have to remember that if Greg Abbott is entirely successful in all of his endeavors, and he absolutely hermetically seals off the Texas border. That's a Republican governor in a big, long border state. But Arizona, New Mexico, and California don't have Greg Abbotts. They have Katie Hobbs, they have Newsom, and they are just letting everyone in. They have no state troopers down there. They've got no fortifications. They only have green uniform Border Patrol guys that are letting them all in, processing them all in. So this is a federal issue. You can't get away. If you just concentrate on the fight in Texas, you're missing New Mexico, Arizona, and California, and they are just pouring in there. This is about catch and release. Catch, release, and bus, actually.
Catch, release, bus, and don't report to court for ever or 6 years later.
Right.
They tell them right now the waiting is 6 years, 6 to 7 years before they even have to go to court. So what are they doing? Where are they working?
Well, they're not deporting. They're not deporting anybody, and they're not detaining anybody either. And if you don't have detention and deportation happening in large scale, then nothing is going to happen. Nothing is going to get done. It's all going to be one way. The Senate is negotiating right now with the Democrats and the Republicans over some kind of a deal. It looks like it's going to die. But in none of those negotiations has it leaked out that the administration is going to have to deport a certain number of deportable aliens. Only we're going to let in 5,000 a day. Nothing about we're going to require that you push out and home 10,000 a day to make up 15,000 a day.
That's only going to happen, and I believe it. In fact, I know it will. I'm going to tell you this because I talked to Tom Homan, and if President Trump becomes 47, which I believe he will, they are going to set up a plan to deport. That is the only way this is going to stop. The only way we are going to stop the flow. I don't know how you do that. I agree with you, Todd. It's so complex. How do you go get people, send them home? How do you do it after they're already in here? But something has to happen or our nation is going to break. This is the weaponization of migration by our enemies and by our internal enemies of our nation that think only of themselves and future voters and think nothing of our country. They could care less about what is happening here.
And the only way to deter a mass migration like this is to have a deporter in chief.
That's it. And there's only one person that's going to do that. And I'm just going to say it. It's going to be President Trump. There's nobody else. I don't know anybody else who is willing to take that stand. And that, to me, that's it. I don't know. Unless you know someone. I think the only person that's going to be able to do this is going to be President Trump. And he's going to do it with a strong backing of a team that will do exactly what is required of them to remove, and especially remove, criminal aliens, special interest aliens from the United States. There's just no other way around it. Thank you so much, Todd, for being a part of the Sara Carter Show. You're awesome. I could talk to you forever, actually, which probably drives you nuts because I was running late. I'm probably holding you back from some event, but I really appreciate the time you've taken to be on the show. Again, thank you, Todd, for joining us today. Your reporting is incredible. I can't wait to get you back on the show again. Please make sure you're subscribed to the Sara Carter Show on your favorite podcast app. It helps us keep the show free and really gives us a boost in the algorithm. If you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, give us a like and a follow as well. Thank you. It really does help. Follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on X at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our great nation. And God bless the great state of Texas.